Hello, Catskill High School students. We are doing our Algebra Unit 5B YouTube lesson here. We're going to get started right away. You can see that the date is 4/27. Okay. So, which of the following points is a solution to the system below? So they have a couple of inequalities solved here, and you can see that there's a lot of shading, but the darkest shading, this area, is the overlap. That's where the solutions are. So any coordinate that lies in here is what they're looking for. So you just can locate these. Remember, these are x, y. They're all in that order. X, y. So just find them. 2 on the x-axis. Over 1, 2. Up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that's right on top of a dash line. Remember, dash line means it is not a part of the answer. So this, even though it's close, is a no. -3, 0, that means left 1, 2, 3 on the x and stay at 0 on the y. That is not in the dark overlap. And 0, 3, it means 0 on the x, 1, 2, 3 on the y. It's in some shading, but not the darkest shading, so that's not it. And I'm hoping this is it. 3, 0. 1, 2, 3 on the x, 0 on the y. You could see that is right smack in the middle, so we're going to stick with that choice. 4. All right, move right on down. All right, so this one has a lot of reading in it. Just stick with it. It's not that bad. When Max and Evie were counting the items of candy after trick-or-treating, the total number of items they had was at least 90 and at most 115. So basically, you have total number of items. The lowest they had was 90. So check this out how I do it. That means the total number of items they have has to be bigger than or equal to 90, and at the same time, the maximum is going to be less than or equal to 115. So it gives a lower limit and an upper limit. And remember, it's 2 people, Max and Evie. Well, let me just put it to you like this. Use M for Max, added to Evie's items, and together they happen to stay in between these 2 numbers. All right, let's keep reading. If Evie had 42 items of candy, which of the following inequalities represents all possible numbers of items M that Max could have had? Well, let's take this E out and put the information in. Let's put 42 where Evie is. So 42, that's what she had. We still don't know what Max could have had, but I know that no matter what, between these two, they're going to add up and stay between 90 and 115. All right, so this is a conjunction, and you can solve this like a regular inequality. So you can reverse this plus 42. You could say subtract 42. Now normally we'd say on both sides, but in this particular case, there's actually a side here. And also, you have to subtract 42 to keep this inequality true. So that cancels, and all you have left in the middle, I'm going to have to write my answer over here. You'll have M in the middle by itself. And on the right, this subtract 42, that's 73. And on this side, 90 subtract 42, that's where we get 48. And then you look for that. Max is probably in between those two somewhere. Choice number 3. And that's it. So you have another one on your classwork that's very similar to that. All right. Let's take a look at the last question, number 3. All right, so they give us 2 functions. They give us this quadratic function, which if you graph it, it's a parabola. And the good news is you don't need your graphing calculator. They already graphed the parabola for you right here. This is a linear. the line. If you graph it, they already did it. Here's the line. All right, now this is going to be useful later. If you want to know when this parabola, that's this part, is equal to this line, you have to answer this question. For what x value do the graphs share the same y value? Well, basically where they cross. You can see they cross here and they cross here. So let's answer the question. For what x value does that crossing happen? So on the x-axis, here's the x-axis. It looks like I go left 1, left 2. So at -2 is one answer. So x equals -2 is an answer. And it looks like I have to go right 1. So for the x value 1 is another answer. So they have it listed in roster notation. So -2 and 1. So that's all there is to that. All right. Page number 2, kids. Top of the page. Looks like a really hard question, but it's not bad at all. We need to read this and come up with 2 equations. Mark purchased H package of hamburgers for $6.75. So H is to $6.75. And B package of buns for $1.50. Okay, so every package of buns costs $1.50. And he purchases 18 total items. And he spends $90. Okay. Which system of inequality or equations could be used to determine how many of each item Mark purchased? So listen, I'll break this down into cost versus the amount of things he bought. Well, the cost, well, think about it. A hamburger costs $6.75 for every package. So I'm going to say $6.75 for each pack of hamburgers plus $1.50 for every package of buns he bought. So that's a B. And the total amount of money he spends is listed as 90. So I have a cost equation. Now I just need to focus on how many things he bought. All of the hamburger packages plus all of the bun packages totaled 18 items. And you look for that answer and just don't get tricked. Make sure the H and the B's line up properly. I think that is choice 1 right away. If you look at all the other ones, they certainly are trying to trick you very cleverly, but you won't fall for that. All right, so for this particular question, they give you a table. So this is very similar to number 3, but they give it to you in table format. So the graphs of f of x and g of x intersect only twice. Select values of the functions are shown in the table. So they want to know when f of x is equal to g of x. So same question. For which x values do f of x and g of x share the same output? You know, check -2. All right, these don't match, so that's no. Check -1. Yeah, that is. So one of our answers is x equals -1. You got to be careful. It could be another crossing. No match, no matches. X value 2, they share the same output again. So x equals 2. So if you want to write it that way, you can. The author of your books lists it sometimes with the fancy notation. That's okay. You can do that. All right. And that's all there is to that. All right. Now this last question is graphing. It says, solve the following system of inequalities graphically. I hope you all remember that you can't graph anything unless it's solved for y. This very first inequality is a problem, not even solved for y. So let's just rewrite it. and make a couple of moves to it so this y can be alone. So that's what we need to isolate. So I'm going to add this 5x on this side and add 5x over here, so it's no longer there. So 2y is still here. This greater than symbol is still here. And I'm going to put the 5x first. You don't have to, but I will. Solve this by dividing by 2. Make sure you divide all terms. So now I'm saying y is greater than, and my fraction is 5 over 2x, that's my slope, minus 4, so this is ready to graph. This one right here was ready to graph right at the very beginning. It doesn't need anything at all. It's all for y. Now, for all the wimpy students out there, if you notice, I covered up the graph that was under here because this is where you are. You're probably at your house and you have to graph and you're like, I don't have any graph paper. Don't worry, just get a straight edge. Every kid must have a straight edge someplace. Make y-axis, make an x-axis, and then label, always label your axes, and just start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now certainly mine aren't perfect and yours aren't going to be either. If you really want to, you can use the tick marks of your ruler to get really technical. But, all right, so let's graph this one first. It has a y-intercept -4, so I'm going to go down on the y-axis to -1, 2, 3, 4. And my slope says I'm going to rise 5, run 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me count that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and run 1, 2. Make a new dot. All right, now this line is supposed to be dashed, doesn't have an equal sign there. Okay, so dash it. And I'm gonna have to shade. Well, it's got the greater than symbol, so I'm supposed to be shading above this line. So shading above the line. Remember not to scribble. Try and keep it as organized as you can. And this next line right here, ready to graph, y-intercept is 2. So I'm going to go up to 1, 2, make a dot. And I'm supposed to be going down because of the negative, so I'm going down 1 over 2. Down 1 over 2. All right, got a couple dots. When you graph this one, it's supposed to be a solid line. Okay. Solid line because of this equal sign is there. And this is the less than symbol, so we're going to shade beneath the line. Now you'll see like a double shaded area here that look like checkerboard. That's the solution. Anything that happens to be floating around in there is part of the answer. All right, so let's make sure we label our first one. 2y minus 5x is greater than 8, I believe -8, so just writing that in there. And the second one was y less than or equal to -1/2 x plus 2. All right, so one more question, guys. Is this a part of the solution? -4, 3. Well, -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then up 1, 2, 3. It looks like it's a solution, but if you're not sure, just put it in. That's the X, that's the Y, and you can plug them in and see if it works in both. So 2y minus 5x to see if it's greater than -8, and you would have to make sure it works in y less than or equal to -½ x plus 2. So make sure you put 3 in for y, -4 in for x, 3 in for y, -4 in for x. Over here you end up with 6 plus 20. You end up with an easy one. 26 is bigger than -8. Check mark, yes. Let's see, over here you end up with 3 is less than or equal to 4. Yeah, that's true again. So we end up with 2 truths. So finally we can definitely conclude they say yes, -4, 3 is a solution. All right, so that's all there is to that. I hope you watch this video before you try your classwork. And that's the cat.